Hello boys and girls! I guess it's time for yet another K-Tapes. Today I have a bunch of games for you. They're mainly Xbox, like original Xbox games. Although there's maybe one Xbox 360 game, and they're all pretty much brand new, shrink wrapped. So really good haul in general. First I'm gonna start off though with games that I found online. I bought them online. One was from a Facebook seller. The other two were from eBay, so that I was really happy about it. So I'm going to start with that. So just so you know, in Seoul, there's one area for games called, well, there's more than one actually. There's Techno Mart. There are two Techno Marts. One only has maybe 3 game stores there. So it's not really good unless you're in the area and you want to drop by. Otherwise, don't really go there. It's not really worth it. There's another Technomart with a couple game stores. Again, it always depends on what you're looking for. Because in Korea, there are not many Xbox games to start with. Like anything, like it used to be very, very popular with the Xbox 360. Although now they kind of, I wouldn't say they disappear, but sellers tend to put them like aside or like in the back of their counter, so they're hard to, like they're out of reach. You cannot really see them well unless you ask the seller. And also sellers in Korea, like those stores, they tend to have like most of them high prices, so it's a bit of a turn off, to be honest. And I mean, there's nothing compared with the US, where you would go to a thrift store, a Goodwill, pawn shop, and grab like a whole bunch of games for like, I don't know, $40. In Korea, it's pretty much like if you do get at least 3 games for $40, you're extremely lucky. So just give you like a perspective, about 2000 to 2010 games are priced in Korea. Even Xbox One are extremely hard to find right now, either brand new or used. Although you can find some online, I would say it's probably easier that way than go to a shop, because shops just don't carry them anymore. So anyway, let's start with what I got online from sellers that are not Korean, by the way. So those are American games, but I'm really happy to have them in my collection. The first two, it was a package, like they were both sold together, of course. So it's Ninja Gaiden Black and Ninja Gaiden, the original one, for Xbox. Those two games, I paid quite much, to be honest. I mean, well, there's no secret, right? The prices for games and pretty much like any collectibles these days, I guess because of the pandemic, is just going up, and it doesn't seem to slow down. Look at these, like they're really in good shape. So I was at least very happy about that. Like no sun fade on the spine if I go like I do with my videotapes. And as you can see, the games are in beautiful condition. Especially, well, if you look at Ninja Gaiden, the first one, well, the booklet like is fine, but it's not like pristine, right? And the disc is okay as well. But for Ninja Gaiden Black, which is the one I really wanted because it's backward compatible, so I can play this one on my Xbox Series X. The pamphlet inside is top shape, and the disc is, well, it's mint. So really happy about this one. So this will go. Definitely these two are going on my shelf, my collection. So my collection is still very small, I should say. I mean, some people have like hundreds of games, if not thousands of games. I think I've barely passed 20 games. So it's a start, all right? I just got Fatal Frame 2. This game is going up in prices as well. Like, I'm trying to, you know, secure the high valued pieces for the original Xbox, because, well, obviously those are the ones that are gonna climb up in prices. And but it's cool because they're still like around $100. But yeah, while it's still fairly affordable, I want to grab them because yeah, titles like this one, Fatal Frame 2, I think never came out in Korea, so it's kind of like a US, European release, and of course Japan, because yeah, Korea got the Japan release, so if any Koreans wanted to play it, they would have to get the Japanese print, and I guess would need to understand Japanese. So yeah, the problem with this one, the disc is in fairly good shape. The pamphlet is okay-ish, but could be in better shape. Thankfully, it has the little card inside. Although I don't know if you see it here, there was a. This is due to water damage. You see that sometimes with videotape, you know, like if there was like humidity or just like water spilled like inside the casing and it touched the paper might fuse with the plastic. So that's exactly what happened here. So that's why there's this little rip here. And just to show you, like, see like all the kind of mold that started to build up, and you can tell it's not good. So this copy, I mean, it would be better than to have just, let's say, a photocopied sleeve, because that's the original sleeve. It's good looking on the shelf, but collecting wise, for me, it doesn't really look too good. So yeah, on the shelf, it may look fine from the spine like this. If you put it in your collection, it looks good. It's a decent looking copy from first glance, but for myself as a collector, this is a bit of a no-no. So I would rather like exchange the sleeve at least. The disc is fine, just exchange the sleeve. And if I cannot find one, then I'll probably stick with this one, sell it later, and probably buy a much better copy. Thankfully, I hope I can find a good seller, or yeah. So that's it. First one I have here is Jager, or Jager. Let's say Jager. So this was released by THQ. It has several releases, American release, European release, and so on. But the cool thing about this one, Korean release, the cool thing is they went on with their own design. I think the other copies of this game, like the other releases, they do have the spaceship, plus they had a character on the side. But this is much cooler. To be honest, it's not because I grabbed this and hey, I have this copy, but I think it's the best looking copy of maybe of all, I would say 4 or 5 different releases I've seen so far on the market, including the Japanese one and so on. So this is a super cool release, and it's brand new, and it's, I mean, brand new as in sealed, of course. And as you can see inside, I don't know if you can see with the camera, but inside you see there's like a paper something. So this is like the Korean booklet. It's been packaged with this copy, so that's really sweet. And of course you got the, you know, the security tab on the spine like this. So yeah, that was a really cool grab for Korean games. We have Brave Knight. That was a Japanese game. Once again, really cool thing. I think it only came out in Japan. Well, now Korea, and probably also China, like for the whole Asian market. It was released by Panther Software in Korea, as you can see right here at the bottom. So they have their own publisher right here in Korea. And I can tell you the artwork for this one is totally different than the Japanese one. Now, which one is the best? I can tell. Like, I don't remember exactly what was on the Japanese cover, but this one is really cool. I mean, if you're into anime stuff, I mean, this is perfect. And again, it is still sealed. Look at the tab. And the thing with Korean releases, most of the time, I mean, you know, like there's been debate with people with their sealed copies, if they have that V fold. I don't know how you call it, but you know, the way it's sealed with that little fold here, sometimes it's just Sometimes it's just like a shrink wrap. But yeah, anyway, I guess the thing that counts is your tab here. So yeah, this was another purchase I got from Seoul. Actually, I got that from Yongsan. Very happy about it. This one is a Korean game. It's called Kingdom Under Fire Heroes. So it's a series on Kingdom Under Fire by Blue Side Studio. Blue Side Studio is a Korean studio. I think Blue Side and maybe Fantagram is the publisher. This is a studio. A bit confused here, but yeah. It was a award-winning game, pretty popular in the early 2000, I guess 2005, 6, 7. I can't recall. I think this is the second one in the series. Very popular. In Korea, it was actually very popular. So this one came out in the States, and I guess it had a European release as well, and so on. But it's really cool, I think, to have the Korean release of the original Korean game. And again, this one is sealed. I have Test Drive, Eve of Destruction. And the fun thing here, you're gonna say, well, this is the American release. Well, guys, you're right. This is an American release for the Korean market. So what I'm thinking here, because I bought it in Korea, obviously, is that it is multi-region. Just when multi-region games was not really a thing, or it was like quite unknown which copy was multi-region and so on. Like I remember I used to do like research on Play Asia at the time to figure out which one would play on which console, especially back in the 360 Xbox 360 era. But this is original Xbox. And the cool thing, once again, right here you have the age certification from the Korean government, and it tells you when it came out, and just it tells you that it was correct to sell in Korea. So it's kind of like your seal of approval by the same thing as this. So there you go. This is Eve of Destruction, and a really cool thing, once again, it is sealed, ladies and gentlemen. Another cool sealed copy. Excellent condition. Probably a shitty game, I don't know. Gladiator, a really nice cover art. I mean, you can't argue with this. It's very minimal, but it's striking. Because I think the American copy had like one gladiator rushing through you with his, like, screaming with his sword, much more like action-packed style. This one is more like subtle, like looks like almost like a collector's edition, although it's not. So I got that in Seoul, once again in Yongsan. Didn't pay much for it, thankfully. Beautiful copy. The only thing though is the screenshots, if you look closely, they look a bit blurry. And yeah, you might think, oh, this is like a fake one. No, it's not. It's just bad Photoshop, I'm guessing. And you always have this thing in Korea. You always have this for Korea only. So this is your indication when you buy the Korean releases. The same thing goes for Japan. It says for Japan only, and I guess for US it says for USA only. So this is your thing here. You should check for the Korean releases. Well, unless you can read Hangul. So you have it right here, Gladiator, Sword of Vengeance. This is the only game for the Xbox 360 that I bought a few weeks ago, and again a Korean release. So I know it's not the best game in the world, but honestly I've never tried it and I do want to try it. The reason I bought it, yeah, because one, I want to try it, and two, it is backward compatible, so I can play this on my Xbox Series X. As you can see, of course, it has all these little little warnings at the bottom. Really, some of them looks cute almost, right? It's very like cartoonish. So this one is like foul language. This one is about money. I guess it involves gambling. This one obviously has drugs or vaccine. This one is something sexual, so male, female. And this one, I forgot what this one is. I would say probably violence or action violence. Well, there you go, 18. So this is your 18-year-old rating for this game. So that's like the modern type of rating for Korean games. It started off with Xbox 360, if I can remember correctly. It still goes on. You'll have the same warnings on, let's say, Xbox games, PlayStation games, even the Wii games, same thing. Nintendo Switch games. So voila. So this is Duke Nukem Forever. Beautiful copy. Very clean. Has the booklet. Everything is mint inside. So yeah, it didn't cost me much. I was really surprised because this cost me exactly $5. And if you find a game in this condition for $5 in South Korea, take it. Because sadly, all the sellers I've been to, in especially Yongsan and all the other places you can buy games in Korea, there's barely anything under $10. And most of the time it's beat up, and yeah, it's anyway disappointing for the Korean market. If you want to jump into collecting, the prices are not what you'd expect. Okay, next, this was a I would say almost like a blind buy. Reason is I just like the cover and this is a Japanese release, and the price was cool, was fairly cheap, so I got it. It's called Crimson Sea. I think there's an American release of this, and I do think also it's a decent game. It's not just some shovelware. So that's the reason I bought it, really. There's no other reason. And this one is a Japanese release, as you can see right here, for Japan only. But like I told you just before, the Japanese games, they work on the Korean consoles because they're both NTSC-J for Japan. But all Asian games do work on all the Asian systems. So if you buy a Chinese release, I guess it will play on the Japanese system. If you buy a Japanese game, you play it on the Korean system, it will work, and vice versa. China, like Hong Kong, Singapore, Korea, and Japan. So there you have it, Crimson Sea. This one is a common game. I know in the States is probably selling for like just a couple bucks, no more than $10 in mint shape. This copy is not mint. It has like some sun fade on the spine. I didn't buy it too much for like super collectible. I mean, I got it. The only reason I got it is, well, two reasons. It's backward compatible. I can play it on the Xbox Series X. And also it is a promo. This here means not for sale. So this is a bit more rare. I think also in the States they have a bunch of Crimson Skies that are promos. If not, there's perhaps the easiest promo copies of Xbox games you can find. I'm not sure, but anyway, this one being Korean makes it a little bit more exotic. So yeah, that's the only reason I bought it, and also it was fairly cheap. And I wanted to try this game because I've heard good things about it. So Crimson Skies, Korean release, and this one is a promo, not for sale copy. Okay, last one, I have a heavy hitter. Halo. So this is original Halo. Of course, very, very famous game. It doesn't need any introduction because it helped sell the Xbox console like nothing else. Well, I just flipped it. You saw it. Yes, this is a sealed copy for Xbox Korean version. So extremely rare. I haven't been collecting Korean games for too long, but I go everywhere in Seoul, as you know, for videotapes, and also I always keep an eye out for like games, although the prices are always high, so only now I started collecting. But I can tell you this, I didn't see it anywhere. It's really, really rare. Even, I mean, an open copy, I haven't came across any, to be honest. Maybe once, and that was it. I've seen, though, Halo 2 popping up a bit more often in used. But Halo 1 and Halo 1 sealed on top of everything, it's just no, it's not happening. So yeah, and I paid a bit much for this, and also as you can see, once again you have your for Korea only. Everything is in Hangul on the back. So yeah, I paid a bit much for this one because I think it was from like some kind of seller slash collector. So, and also all the sellers in Korea, they're kind of really aware of prices. So, you know, it wasn't like in a $5 bin, let's say. But I'm really proud of it because it's sealed. It's a legendary game. It's the Korean release, which is perhaps one of the rarest of the Asian releases. Because as you know, the Korean market for Xbox, the original Xbox was fairly poor in Korea. The last thing I have for you today is this. Well, you might think, okay, what's the point of showing us a laptop? The reason is I had this laptop pouch when I had my MacBook before I sold it. I didn't really need it. I mean, I do not travel. I do not really use it like in a cafe or something. I just use my phone, so I sold it. But I kept the pouch, and I was about to throw this pouch away until yesterday. I went shopping with a friend, and he just pointed something at me. I was like, oh! And since he pointed it at me first, I said, well, dude, you want to get it because you saw it first. And he's like, no, take it. So I kind of blame him for, you know, gathering more gaming stuff. But this is just becoming my pouch, protective pouch for this right here. So I got this really cool PlayStation 2 Slim. Of course, at the time, when I was much younger, I owned the PlayStation 2, but I never got the Slim version. Also because at the time I was still a student, I was poor, so I couldn't afford like any upgrades with my consoles like I can do now. So this, I've never had one. And when I saw one, I thought, hey, since I'm into this old retro thing, backward compatibility and so on, of course the PlayStation 4 couldn't play any backward compatible games. PS5 can play PS4, but you're kind of done if you want to play like more old school games on the PlayStation. So grabbing this will allow me to play PS1 and PS2 games, as most of you probably know already. Made for the Korean market. I mean, it doesn't say made for Korean market, but there's Hangul right here. So it says Korea, like PlayStation 2, and everything else is in Korean. So that makes it the Korean release. And once again, NTSC-J, so Japan, but yeah, I can play Japanese games on this, Chinese games if it happens, and of course the Korean releases. The only downside of this is, because I got that from a flea market, and I paid a really low price. I was really happy about this though. The thing is, they never have the goddamn cables, and they don't have controllers, and they don't have the power supply, so I have nothing. You just have a console like this. So even though I paid a very good price for this, I cannot use it. Of course, yeah, you'd say, well, you can just go on eBay, grab some cheap wires, but in Korea, there's not anybody selling like loose wires or anything. So unless I go to some flea market and I happen to see some of them lying around and I buy them, or if I go to those game shops, but they'll probably overcharge me for stuff like that, which is a bit frustrating, to be honest. It's probably gonna cost me about $40, including shipping. And the shipping I checked on eBay was $25. The wires were like 12. So yeah, you have it. For the controllers, it's not too bad because PS2 was so popular in Korea back in like 2000 that I can find a used controller anywhere, and I'll probably have to pay about 10 bucks or $5 to $10, so that's not too bad. It's really more like the wires. Same thing goes with the Xbox, the original Xbox that I purchased previously, actually from the same person. It's only the console. It doesn't have any controllers, doesn't have any wires, and for the Xbox it's much more difficult to find these things because, as I told you, Xbox was not popular in Korea. Only Xbox 360. So there you have it, guys. This is everything I got today. Well, today. I got for you today. I purchased most of this stuff in the past, I would say, 2.5 weeks. I'm really happy about my haul because most of these games are brand new still and in top shape. I mean, if they're open. The only downside, of course, is that little fatal frame, because this is such a collectible game and it's usually really pricey. Well, still affordable, but yet pricey for Xbox. I really hope I can find another copy of this, or replace at least the paper inside, the cover. And for the rest, really happy. I may be looking up to sell my copy of Halo. I know. Why should I do that? Well, the thing is because they tend to go for quite some money on eBay. I mean, the American release. But the Korean release is such a cool variant. So it may be cool for someone who's a collector of Halo, or some just wants to have like variants from different countries of Xbox games, because, you know, it's always cool to have these things. Same thing with tapes, right? So yeah, there you go. So I may put this one for sale unless I do have a really cool offer for it. Oh yeah, and one last thing, I want to give a shout out to one store that I've been to in Seoul, that was in Technomart, and this is where I purchased my Crimson Sea and another game. The reason I do this, I never do that usually, because most of the sellers that I interacted with in Korea when I bought games, they were like, I wouldn't say too nice, but not the best service, you know. With the tapes is different, because I go there like so often, so they know me, they're really kind, they're really nice. But for the games, you know, like, and also with the prices is not too great. But this one store the guy was a gentleman, super cool. Younger guy, because usually they're older guys also selling games, but this one was a younger guy, really nice, top service, really helpful. You know, he took out some games from the back shelves and he showed them to me, and usually, you know, the sellers don't really do that. It's kind of bothering them, but this guy was top. So I just want to give a shout out to his store. So thank you, everyone. That's all I have for today with the games. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I really hope I can get more Korean releases in the near future. I'm still gonna hunt for those, that's for sure. I'm keeping some of the money I make with the tapes, and I do spend for games. So thanks, everyone, and see you again on the next K-Tapes.